Megan Taylor Morrison here, and I am here with Makeda Kumasi, one of the amazing authors for Dance Adventures, True Stories About Dancing Abroad. Welcome, Makeda.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be
Yes.
here. Glad to be part of such a wonderful project. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Sante Sana.
Yeah, Sante Sana. What's the instrument that you're playing?
This instrument is a kora. It's called a kora. I call her darling. And the kora is a manding instrument. It is really one of the first sacred instruments of the oral historian of the community known as the Jali in some parts of West Africa, where this instrument comes from and where I visited and talked about in the story.
Yes, yes. And your story is just amazing. It's in the first part of the book, and you talk about your trip to Senegal. Tell us
Yes.
briefly what your story is about.
Well, it is a story about my travels to Senegal. I considered it a sabbatical because I am a practitioner of West African drum and dance. And I'm also a lecturer in the dance department at the University of California, Riverside. And so several years ago, I got a professional development grant to go and study dance and culture on the continent, and particularly to go to Senegal. So I write about that experience, and actually the excerpt that I have contributed to Dance Adventures comes directly from my memoir, and it's the last, it's the last part, the meat part of the whole journey, where I visit the door of no return on Gore Island. And so that's why it's entitled We Return, because in that experience of dance and cultural exchange, we return through the door of no return, right? I bring all my ancestors and teachers and elders with me on this journey. So I really hope that you read it and are inspired to travel abroad, dance abroad, visit the motherland, Africa, and the country of Senegal.
I love it. I love it. And for those who don't know, what is the door of no return?
The door of no return was a port where many enslaved Africans found that was the last place that they would set their feet on the continent of Africa. It is found many times, depending on what country you go into in Western Africa, you will find these types of ports, these spaces located usually at what they call a slave house or a slave mansion or a castle. I believe they call them castles in Ghana. But yes, it was the port, a large door. In this case, the one in Senegal on Gore Island that I visited, it has a long hallway. And I describe, much like my tour guide, Abubakar, described to me, those enslaved Africans, these young women, young men who chained, walked through this door, hearts heavy, bodies bruised, knowing that, or assuming that they would never return to the continent again. So through my travels, through this sabbatical, I just feel like I brought so many of, again, my ancestors, my elders, my mother. I have another book called I See Hip Hop Africa, read through that book as well. And when they read my writings, elders tell me that, places that they would have wanted to go, now they can experience themselves through this reading if they can't get there on their own.
I love that. What an incredible contribution. And it was really, I remember when I was first reading your story, it was so brilliant the way that as you were touring these places, you were also sharing about the arts and the dances of the West African people and how they tied in your vision of like who might have learned the dance or who might not have had a chance to learn before they were sent off through that door of no return. And we won't say much about it because it's the meat of the story and we want y'all to read it. But this
Well,
might
I really appreciated this process of revisiting that
be.
portion, especially of my journal, of my travels, and including it into this dance anthology, because yes, we are dancers in every sense of the way. And so just thinking about how important dance and music is to the African culture, and just the suppression, the oppression felt by not being able to learn these dances, learn your movements, the right of having this music and this dance and this movement passed on to you is now interrupted by this great tragedy by the Maafa. So again, it's important to revisit and consider who would be manjani, those sacred women dancers that are chosen to dance the sacred dance, or who would have been the strong man, who would have done the doundounba and won. You know, all of those cultural experiences were put on hold for many of years, for many people centuries, if we go back 400 years to the beginning of the conquest of the African continent. So yes, to revisit and look at this work in that way from a dancer's eyes really was refreshing and illuminating, and I hope inspiring to the reader to get a better connection to what it is to be a dancer, you know?
Yeah, and not just a dancer for a hobby, but a dancer as a way of life, as tradition, as something that's actually built into the culture and an honor to receive and to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, so the listeners hear it or the watchers hear it and understand, manjani is the dance that was given to young women, correct? Tell us a little bit more about manjani and doundounba, just so people are crystal clear what they are.
Yes, okay, so I do mention several dances that are familiar to the West African dance community across the globe. These are dances that were essentially given to us by the dance companies that toured out of Africa, Guinea Ballet, Boogadoo, all of these dance companies that toured. And I have been a dance practitioner for over 2 decades, for over 20 decades in traditional West African dance. And so these are some of the dances that we constantly perform, as well as edutain, okay, through them in teaching the culture. So yes, manjani is not only a dance, right? It's a dance, it's a rhythm, and it's a sacred rite, because manjani was a particular young lady in the village that is chosen to learn this particular dance movement, to learn the movements for this rhythm. And so it is really, the manjani is a sacred society of women who are chosen in the village to pass on these traditions. It's often called the dance of the young virgin. It's full of vitality, veracity, you know, every little thing that you could imagine. West African dance being, I think it is epitomized in manjani. And then I talk about doundounba, and doundounba is the dance of the strong man, right? So this is on the I would say polar end is being a masculine dance as opposed to a feminine dance. I just, in the context of the story, I just think about, especially being in Senegal, where the traditional sport is wrestling, that you will often hear doundounba being played in a wrestling match. You know, the doundounba is also a very sacred dance in the fact that it was not only used as a challenge dance. Sometimes you might think of West Side Story, or you might think of Michael Jackson's Bad, where you have the fighters that are not fighting, they're dancing. That's actually the African concept of the doundounba, because the doundounba also in spirit is known to resolve the problems or issues in the community. So you had to learn some good doundounba, because, you know, if anything goes wrong, you want to be able to win that battle, that dance battle. Yeah, so, you know, just who like how many of these young men do not get the opportunity to learn this dance, to challenge themselves, to show off their abilities. And again, this was a rites of passage. And I also learned in my research about doundounba that to dance in this circle, the men, the warriors, would also be wielding whips. And so you're dancing and you're getting whipped on the back while you're dancing this dance. So it's intense, you know, and talks about the love of culture, because even for you to be brave enough to dance this dance, to endure that pain, you know that there is family and that there's culture around you is going to make you better, to, you know, to help your wounds heal, and so on and so forth. And that is an important thing for a warrior to learn, right? Going out into the jungle or whatever in their hunt. So there's so much to learn about socialization, about how we are as humans through these, you know, just the two dances that I talked about here. And I do speak a little bit more about the context and the historiography about other West African dance that come from the great Mali Empire and other Mandinka instruments. This is the kora.
Look at that kora. That is beautiful.
I'm excited to be able to play this, because there's not many people who get the opportunity to play this instrument, because it is passed down by a bloodline generation. It's not something that you can pick up at your local guitar store, right? So lately, I've been taking lessons from the grandson of the king of the kora,
wow,
Jale Fode Sissoko. And so it's almost been, it's not even been a year yet, but
wow.
I'm very happy with my progressions, and glad to share it with you guys today. So
yeah, you. play us a little bit more so we can hear it again.
Okay, so this actually what I'm going to play, this is the first tune that I've learned, and this is Lamban. And I talk about Lamban in this story, and Lamban is the music created by the oral historian of the community. We have heard of them as griots, but I don't really call them griots. I like to use the African term ajali. And so Lamban was created by the Jali to thank the Most High for music, for creating him or her as a Jali. So it goes.
Beautiful. Lovely. Show us the instrument, Makeda, because it's a large instrument. So
yes, so this is a string instrument. It's created from a gourd, right? And this is his personal instrument that he gave me. So I was so excited, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a new one. But he said, no, you have to learn with one that it already has soul. So that you can already be playing soulfully. So I'm so honored to to be able to play his personal instrument. But yes, it's made out of gourd and it's covered with the cow skin. And then it has, the sound, the bridge. This one, it can be amplified. And it has 23 strings that are attached all the way up the neck. Right. And in an interview with Fode, he explains how within this kora, it tells the story of Muhammad and tells the story of Jesus and tells the story of the 10 Commandments. So it's like you can see the bridge kind of looks like what the 10 Commandments would be on, right? And he talks about how the crossway of the wood represents the Christ, right? The cross for the Christ. And so this is a very sacred instrument. And he explains that it is one of the only instruments that are allowed to be played in the mosque or in churches or in places where for funerals and things like that. So I'm honored because, like I said, it's not often that this tradition, that this information is passed on to someone outside of the bloodline. So much history is told through song. As I spoke, that he is an oral historian, and that is the way the history had been kept for centuries and centuries throughout Africa, and particularly West Africa. And so this is the instrument, this is the tool that kept all of that information through song. Yes.
Wow. Woo, woo, woo. Well, for those who are listening, you can tell that Makeda is just a wealth of knowledge. I wish I was near UC Riverside so I could come in and take all of your classes. Although you are teaching them online, I saw.
Yes,
so.
Yes, we're online. We're not, COVID, big Rona running things. So what we're going to do, we still got to get our drum and dance in. Yes, so we're online. Of course, I've modified to be, easier to pick up because there's a lot of intricate movement, and the connection between the drummer and the dancer and the live music does not play so well on the internet. And it's definitely not the same community feeling as it would be in a studio class. But the last quarter that we were online, the students really enjoyed the class. I had people taking intermediate West African dance that had never danced before.
Wow.
Like, oh, that's bold.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. Woo, in for a surprise.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Well, in our final few minutes here, would you mind reading us the very first part of your story? Be so honored to have you do a little reading.
Yes. Thank you for asking.
And again, while she's finding her book, this is from our book, Dance Adventures. Woo, matching books.
I don't have to go too far.
True stories about dancing abroad. Go for it, Makeda. Take us on out with your story.
I have to take my glasses off. Well, I hope you guys, I'm just going to give you, the first page, a little teaser, because I feel, and I hope that Megan feels, including this in the story, it's very rich, and we want you to purchase the book and read it. I don't want you to get everything right now. But this morning, it is a slow rise. The sun seems to take its time peeking over the horizon and chasing the shadows from the corners of my small square room. Outside, a prayer is being recited over the loudspeaker. The call to prayer has become familiar to me since my arrival here in Senegal, where 95% of the population practices the Islamic faith. The harmonious and smoothing sound is comforting to my spirit as I roll off my inflatable mattress to salute the sun in my morning yoga and meditation ritual. The stretches of reverse warrior, the bend of triangle pose, and the contractions of cat and cow are exactly what my body needs after the grueling 16-hour taxi ride yesterday back to Dakar from Saliambor, the seaside town where I'd been based for my intense dance training. This long day of travel has made my body feel stiff and tired after having spent so much time moving. Today will be my last full day in Senegal. And as I shift into each new yoga pose, I reflect on my journey so far. I arrived here 11 days ago, thanks to a professional development grant from the University of California, Riverside, where I had just been hired to teach West African dance. Despite my credentials in dance, I felt compelled to visit the motherland to gain firsthand knowledge and education on the subjects of West African dance and culture. I felt this was the validation I needed to legitimize my teaching of this subject at the university level. Also, it satisfied a long-awaited dream of mine to set foot on the land of my African ancestors. Although I am African American and I consider this my motherland, I have felt more foreign here than I could have imagined. Those around me most often speak Wolof or Manding, native languages to the Senegalese people, which I don't understand. I have longed for home, although I am home in a sense. I have missed my children, my mother, and my husband, Jerome, all of whom were back in the United States. Despite these challenges, I am so grateful for this journey. Since arriving, I've learned so much, and today will be another important day in my education.
And you'll have to buy the book and read. Yes, there it is. We return. Read Makeda's story to find out more about the dances, her journey, and her time in Senegal. Makeda, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yokobok, you're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me and including my story in such a fabulous collection of authors in travel and dance.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to work with you and to speak with you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Buy the book. See you soon.